All right, guys, we're talking about this item right here. So this is the Breakthrough DFM. So that stands for the drop-in filter mount. So this is a PL lens adapter that goes to an RF mount. So as you can see, I have it mounted on my red KomodoX. So what was the rationale of kind of picking this? So I mean, I'm just going to bring this over here, just kind of in center. So this is also a PL lens adapter to RF mount. So what's the difference? You know, mount it up to your camera, adapt your PL lenses, you're good to go. And it works. This one is from NiSi. It's around, I think on their website, it's $209. So not inexpensive, but not terribly expensive. So again, this is an option. When you mount your lenses, it's actually really snug. You don't feel like there's like the lens is wobbling or anything inside the mount. It's really well made. Again, if you're just looking for purely an adapter to adapt your PL lenses to an RF mount, this works perfectly fine. What was the rationale why I was looking for a different adapter? So the big thing is I wanted to get the ability to run rear filters in there. I mean, that was my big thing of what I was looking for. And the big problem that I kind of had was, and I'll bring out a couple of these lenses here as kind of an example, is the flange depth. That is a notorious problem that you have on all the adapters, but I'm going to just really focus on the RF version for this point. So one of the things that we kind of notice is depending on your lenses, some of them are really shallow flange depth, and they work with pretty much any drop-in filter adapters just like this. The problem that we run into is certain lenses, and I'll kind of move this one out of the way, this adapter for now. Like for example, the NiSi Athena. Again, this is a PL lens. This is the 35 millimeter. Again, I'm filming on the 50 millimeter on a Blackmagic full frame cinema camera. And I'm running the NiSi Athena on there, the adapter. I don't need rear VND filters or any kind of filters on the back for studio work, so not a big deal. It works perfectly fine. So what is the reason that I'm talking about this one is you kind of look at this. Anybody that's familiar with the NiSi Athenas is that as you adjust the focus, you could see, hopefully I'll try to see if I get it on camera here, is that you can see this rear element is collapsing and expanding. So right now, if I was taking a look at this, this is down to the minimum focus, and it's almost fully flush with the rear element. So again, in this configuration, it's perfectly fine. But what NiSi did was, as you adjusted the focus outwards towards infinity, that rear element starts protruding. And so what does that cause? That's where we get into the whole issue with flange depth. And when you're running on these rear filters, that causes an issue. You are taking up some of that flange distance. All right, so again, why is that important? All right, so I'm on NiSi's website. I'm looking at their PL lenses. So I'll kind of just go through them, and you could see that depending on which lens you're going with, they have a different flange depth that you kind of have to deal with. So on their 14 millimeter, it extends 23.19 millimeters. A 25 millimeter extends 20.62 millimeters. The 35, which I have right here, is 24.74. The 50 millimeter, which I'm filming on again, is 24.78. The 85 millimeter is 24.85. If you were to look at all of these, you have to have a PL adapter that at minimum has 25 millimeters of flange depth to clear this. Now, the problem, so one of the other adapters I was looking at was the Mofage Poco for a rear adapter. Again, keep in mind when this NiSi Athena here, this was a little over $200, $209. When I looked at the Mofage Poco version, it's about $450. So the problem though, again, minus the price that it's double, is that the maximum flange distance that it supports is 24.5 millimeters for the PL to RF. So 24.5, clearly that's not going to work with the NiSi Athena because again, as I said here, You have basically 3 of the lenses, the 35, the 50, and 85 are all over 24.5 millimeters. So again, those would just not work. I basically had a couple options. I'm either going to have to get rid of the NiSi Athenas and go with something else. I was looking at like the DZO RLs, which are obviously a lot more expensive than these lenses. Again, these lenses are somewhere around $1,200, brand new. The RLs are $2,800 plus, so a little over double the price. The big question there was, do I sell these lenses, lose a lot of money on the sale, then have to rebuy the other ones? The second option was, can I find an actual PL lens to RF adapter that will actually support this? And this is where the Breakthrough DFM comes into play. On their website, again, they have various lens conversion options for the different mounts. I'm not going to go through all of them. I'm just going to really just focus on, again, the PL to RF adapter here. On the website, the Breakthrough DFM is stated as 27.5 millimeters for the PL lens to RF mount adapter. Again, compare that to what I mentioned for the Mofage Poco, which was only 24.5 millimeters. So you're looking at 3 millimeter difference between the Breakthrough and the Mofage Poco. With that being said, based on the specs on the paper, it basically says that I should be able to run the NiSi Athenas, and I actually brought over a couple other here just in case. So I have the Blazar Remus lenses right here. These are the anamorphic lenses from them, 1.5x anamorphics. Now, the difference there is that, I'll just show you, this is the 85 millimeter. This is the maximum. Like this one, unlike the Athenas, does not extend as you go through the focus distance. So clearly this one is perfectly fine. It works great. So I have the 85, I have the 50 millimeter. They're both the same, but they came out with a 33 millimeter. And again, that was what I wanted. Their 35 millimeter was for a Super 35, which again would work perfectly fine on the KomodoX since it's a Super 35 sensor. But again, I want to be able to try to use these on other cameras. Again, my other RF mounted camera is the Canon R5 Mark II. So again, when we got into that, if we take a look at this 33 millimeter and I pull off the cap, you can basically see that flange is not the same. Let me get the 85 out, side-by-side comparison, so you can see that this 33 millimeter protrudes out. Now, unlike the NiSi Athena, it doesn't retract or expand any further than this. It's just a fixed distance, just like. So I want to make sure I quote these right. I got on the Blazar's website, they basically go through the Katos and the Remus. So the 33 millimeter, again, this one right here, flange distance is actually 25 millimeters. So it's a little bit longer than NiSi's. Again, that would not clear the Mofage Poco. We look at the 45 millimeter. So basically the 45 millimeter and up, these become a non-issue. 45 millimeter again is 15.1 millimeter flange distance. The 50 is 13.6. The 65 is 15. The 85 is 13.5. The 100 millimeter is 13.6. And the 125 is 14.6. So again, none of those other of the Blazar lenses would be an issue, but the 33 is an issue. And I know some people had called that out and said, they are having issues running that on their cameras with anything with a mount that has a rear drop-in filter. And again, that's the problem, that for whatever reason, don't know why they had to do that or did that, but that's the way it is. Ended up looking on DFS Breakthrough's website, saw that their specs was 27.5, which is phenomenal. Based on their specs, all these lenses should work perfectly fine. Keep not only the NiSi's, but also allows me to run the 33 millimeter. And again, why do I want to run the rear filters on there? Mainly because the expense of buying screw-on filters, whether it's variable NDs or any other circular polarizers, if you get quality ones, they are not cheap. I know everybody could say like, oh, we'll just, unscrew them and, put them onto the other lenses. If for some reason you drop it and it scratches, cracks it, if you're only carrying one. I mean, I know somebody will say, You got to carry a bunch of them, which is fine. But again, that's expense. So if you were to ever damage the one you had, you're kind of out of luck. So that's kind of the nice thing about this is I don't have to keep constantly swapping front element VNDs. There's clearly got to be a downside, right? Well, if anybody has looked at what these cost, they are not inexpensive. And what do I mean by that? So I'm going to just give you a rundown of what I purchased and what the cost was. And again, it's not any kind of sponsored video. I purchased this all myself. So it gives you kind of an idea how much this is. So essentially I got the mount itself. That was $900, significantly more expensive than the NiSi. Again, the NiSi was $209. Again, doesn't have a rear filter system, but plain PL to RF adapter, $209. The MoFage Poco was $450 to $500 ish, but again, it's not going to work with all these lenses. So there's that to consider. Now, again, the filter alone or the mount alone was $900. The MoFage Poco, if you get the standard, I think it comes with a few filters, the VND and some others filters as well. So again, that's your full in on that. So I got a clear, which I'll get into. This is not the clear. This is the VND, but the clear filter, that's $99. The filter holder, which I do not have, but it's where when it's not in use, you just a nice protective cover, a plastic cover. It's really nice. That was $69. And then what I do have in here is the drop-in VND. So this is a 1.5 to 11 stop rear filter. All right, so all in, if you add up the VND drop-in filter, the filter holder, the actual mount itself, and the clear filter, it was, well, it's almost $1,400. Now, by buying those four together, they had like a $98 discount, which if you want to kind of look at it, basically you're getting the clear filter for free. In totality, with the shipping, they don't charge tax, but in total it was $1,299. So for $1,300, it's expensive. So, I mean, again, when I said, is there a con right now? That is the con. It's a major con for probably a lot of people. But if you're going to get VNDs, you're either going to, again, you're going to have to get the front screw-on types. If you do that, that kind of limits your ability to, if you want to run something else, another, like a mist filter or a polarizer or something like that, that becomes a little bit more challenging. Plus, then you got to kind of stack filters on the front. So that is a potential problem. The other option you could do is run a matte box that obviously allows you to do drop-in filters. You're still running into a similar situation, which again, you're going to have to take that matte box off. You're going to have to transfer to another lens when you want to go to a different lens. So there's a little bit of time. Whereas again, here, I can have the lens on. I'm done with it. I take it off, put the next lens on, and I'm good, ready to shoot. So again, that's something to consider when you're looking at, making a decision like this. I think when it really boils down to it is if you need or want, I should say, maybe it's more want than need, but if you want rear filter capabilities, your options are extremely limited. And like I said, there's this one. I think there's another one that's out there that's just as expensive. But again, this is, made in the United States. So it's right now it's super high quality. The locking ring is extremely smooth. I don't feel there's no wobble in the mount. Obviously, the KomodoX has its own locking ring, so it locks in there pretty snugly. I don't notice any wobble. So again, really, really high quality. You have the option of getting the locking ring in a black or red mount. Again, because I'm doing this with the KomodoX. It does come in this nice felt padding, so it was really nice and secure in there. This is something that I think I would, if somebody says, hey, I have, $1,300 to blow on a mount filter system, would you recommend it? I think the answer would definitely be yes. Mainly from the fact that, again, your options are limited. I wish the MoFage Poco also had a flange or supported a flange depth of 27.5 for around the $500 mark. That would have been significantly nicer. It could have used that additional money to pay for other lenses or other equipment, but I'll put my NiSi Athena in just to kind of show you again that this does work. I'm going to turn this around a little bit just so I can see it, but just... you know, there it is. It's fully locked into place, and I'm already at infinity. So I mean, that's perfect. It works. I can, like I said, rack it down to minimum focus distance, which on this one is a little less than 1 foot. But again, works perfectly fine. Again, I can rack it all the way back up to infinity, and works perfectly fine. All right, so we're just going to turn this around. I'm going to try to do this from the opposite side. Obviously, I would not do this if I was doing this in production or outside. But here's what you're going to do. Like, again, you can kind of see, here's the filter. You know, again, it's a 1.5 to 11 stop. So it's a lot of, you have a lot to play with. Unlike some of the screw-on VNDs that I have from NiSi, which are really, really good, but they're a 1 to 5 stop. It gives you a little bit more flexibility than what those offers. Again, the the actual movement of that dial for the VND, it is nice and smooth. It's not to the point where, if you just touch it or bump it, it's somehow going to change on you. It's not like that. It's got a little bit of resistance. It's not like you have to really, work on it to get it to move, but it's also not too loose that, you have accidentally touching it and you're going to change your exposure. There's that. Again, to remove these, and again, I'm going to try to do this. Apologies. Hopefully it works well. But on the top here, there's a little button that you actually press in. That's the unlocking mechanism. So you just grab it by these two right here. You push in on that lock, and then out comes your filter. And again, this is the VND. Like if I wanted to put in the clear, I could just, take that instead and drop it in, and it has a nice audible click. Again, you try to pull it out, it won't come out. So, honestly, it's a good design. The Moflash Poco is very similar. It has the locking tab and stuff like that as well. So it saved me in the long run, despite the cost. Like, again, I don't have to repurchase lenses. I can actually use what I still have. That isn't to say I may not eventually want to get something other than NiSi Athenas or trade them in later, but I'm not forced into it now. It is kind of paying a little bit up front to kind of have that convenience. All right, so final thoughts. What do I think? Again, one, high quality. Again, if you're paying $1,300+ you're expecting, a pretty high quality product. They certainly they did make that. Again, the lockup on the RF mount is really tight. I don't have any wobble. I don't feel like I'm worried about it coming loose. They do offer a optional rear support, for different cameras. They had one specifically for the Komodo and the Raptor. Mounts onto the bottom and then into the front of the camera. I decided at this moment not to do that, mainly because the PL lenses that I currently have are not terribly heavy, or at least not on the heavy side. Now, if I was running one of the DZO RLs, I would probably consider it at this point. But, again, these NiSi Athenas, the Blazar, they're not terribly heavy. And again, I don't notice any shifting or wobble. So at this moment, I'm probably not going to get that. I may eventually just do it anyways. The problem would be is it does screw into the front. So I would be locking myself into, well, I shouldn't say locking in, but like it would be a lot harder if I wanted to not use PL lenses. If I wanted to go back to using RF native lenses, which I do have, not only would I would have to unscrew that before I could take the mount off. So it would have to be a deliberate effort. Like I'm gonna use RF glass or EF to RF glass. I would have to make a conscious decision and remove that mount prior. But so that's another reason why I'm kind of on the fence of whether I want to get that installed or not. Again, high quality. The filter, they do offer a ton of various drop-in filters, circular polarizers, IR filters, blue streak filters, black mist filter. Again, for me, the problem is, like, again, it's a single slot, so you can only run one filter at a time. So for me, the most important really is the VND. I may eventually get something else for, like, if I'm shooting nighttime and I want, a black mist filter or something like that, just to, throw in place of the VND, because again, I'm not going to really need the VND at night. That's probably something I may consider down the road, but I want to kind of give this a little bit more testing to make sure, again, I'm comfortable with it. Again, the VNDs, the filter itself is expensive. It's over $300. I didn't really pay too much attention to the rest of their fillers, but I'm pretty sure that they were maybe not as pricey as the VND, but certainly they're not cheap. If this is something that you were interested in, hopefully it was, gave you enough information to make a decision whether you really want to purchase this. If you have any additional questions, I can certainly try to answer those. Definitely throw them down in the comments. But again, if you were kind of in the same boat as I am, and you had some lenses, or if you had some questions about, like, you want to run a PL to RF adapter, but you're worried about, I have this lens and I'm not sure it's, if you know the flange depth, you're pretty much going to be able to answer your question, right? Again, this is 27 and a half millimeters. So I would say if your lenses, the flange depth on your lenses are less than, I would say 27.3 or 27.25. Again, leave a little room for error. Like I said, if your lens is like 27.45 or some, close number to that 27 or 27 and a half, or at least ask, send a question to Breakthrough and see if they've tested it out. That way, just in case, again, you don't want to make a $1,300+ purchase and then have lenses that you can't use. So again, hope this was informative for you guys. Again, if you have any questions, go ahead and leave them in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them, and we'll see you in the next video.